We all have fond memories of our favourite childhood cartoon characters. For me, I loved Winnie the Pooh. Like, remember that time Pooh got stuck at Rabbit's house? Hehehe, that was cute. Or do you remember that time Pooh viciously impaled an innocent man through the head with a shotgun, and Owl sledgehammered a girl to death, and when Tigger brutally decapitated innocent civilians? Ugh, I miss the good old days. Guys, I don't know how the sequel got the green light, but here we are. In this video, I'll be going over the events that unfolded in Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey 2. The goal is to identify the mistakes made by the main characters and how we could have overcome them in order to stay alive and beat Piglet, Owl, Tigger, and last but not least, Pooh. Stick to the end to find out more about the Poohniverse, with a tease for a future Pinocchio, Bambi and Peter Pan horror movie coming out. Following the events of the first movie, Christopher winds up being the lone survivor of the war crimes committed by Pooh and Piglet. Because of this, the public believe he was responsible for what is now known as the 100-acre massacre. However, a small group of people believe Christopher's story and have banded together to hunt down the beasts that supposedly live in the woods. As a result, Pooh and Piglet are forced to retreat and relocate to a different area of the woods, and also link up with their other friends Owl and Tigger, whose copyright belonging to Disney have now expired. Just because the beasts have been pushed back onto the defensive end doesn't mean their reign of terror has ended, and these three girls are about to find out the hard way. Mia, Jamie and Alice have 3 brain cells between them, and all 3 are fighting for 3rd place. They've decided to go RV camping in the 100-acre woods where a massacre has recently occurred. This isn't just some conspiracy massacre as well, since we're told that the police recovered the mutilated bodies of the victims from the first movie. Since they've decided to come here for whatever reason, you might be wondering what they brought with them for self-defense just in case. Maybe a firearm or a knife? No, they brought a Ouija board and alcohol. It doesn't take long before the RV begins shaking and Alice suggests that they check it out. Jamie embodies me by saying, how about you go check it out instead? If it were me, I would be looking for whatever makeshift tools I can use to defend myself. I would then position myself such that I'll have eyes on the only 2 entrances, being the main door and the roof hatch, in order to collect more information on what may have caused the rumbling. Before they can compose themselves, Alice gets impaled by a pole through the chest. It is now clear the intentions of the attackers are to kill us. As we have been ambushed, this leaves us in a highly vulnerable position, as we don't know how many people are outside and whether they have firearms or not. Even more frightening is the fact that whoever it is, they're strong enough to impale a metal pole through the steel body of the RV and clean through the chest of a person. The large and blunt surface area of the pole compared to something sharp means that up to 5,000 PSI is applied to penetrate the vehicle, assuming it's made of steel. Roughly another 5,000 PSI is then required to penetrate the combination of human skin, muscles and bone. The diameter of the pole being roughly 3 inches gives it an area of 7.1 square inches, and then using that to multiply the required braking pressure by the area and distance broken gives us roughly 100 kilojoules of energy exerted by Owl. To compare, the 50 cal Browning machine gun bullets exerts a force of roughly 18 kilojoules. In conclusion, Owl is jacked as fuck and these ladies are screwed. But if things can get any worse, Pooh begins lifting the RV to topple it over into the lake and it catches fire from the candles. Mia begins climbing out of the window, which is a high risk, high reward strategy. We know the assailant is busy lifting the RV, however we are unaware if there are others outside. The situation is extremely dire at this point, and as a gambling man this seems to be the only option. Mia manages to make it to the go-kart but gets stuck, and Pooh captures her with a bear trap while Owl starts talking trash in the background. Pooh then stomps her face into a bear trap, killing her. Jamie draws the short end of the stick though, as she gets burned alive but still manages to crawl out the RV. YouTube won't let me show you what she looks like, but you're not really missing out on much. She kinda looks like a burnt potato. Lucky for her, Owl puts her out of her misery by impaling a log through her. Their bodies eventually get recovered by the police, which begs the question, what the f are they doing? Seriously, I'm talking about the police force here. The events of the first movie saw roughly 10 people get brutally slaughtered in similar fashion, and this average built dude is being scapegoated. Even the public outcry against him doesn't make sense. He hasn't been charged for the crimes. Like, imagine blaming a child who survived a school shooting just because they were the only one that survived. With the recent string of killings, how is there no mass investigation? You'll see later on in the movie that they send like 3 officers to go investigate the supposed hideout when it gets uncovered. How about no? Here's a better plan. Firstly, Christopher should have refrained from saying that half animal hybrids were responsible. This makes him seem like a liar or a lunatic. He should have said that it was a gang of people wearing animal masks, which is much more grounded in reality and would therefore sound more convincing to the authorities. He should also use the T word, being terrorists, and how this gang had explosives and were cooking up a scheme of mass destruction. The trail of brutality would guarantee that this claim is backed. Now that the alarms are ringing, the Special Forces unit can be dispatched to take them down. When they do discover that it's animal hybrids, it doesn't even matter anymore because they're gonna taste lead regardless. Anyway, the movie cuts to the main protagonist, Christopher, who attends therapy sessions from all the trauma he experienced from the first movie, and also from being branded as responsible for the massacre. Additionally, we also learn that he's recovering from when his younger brother got kidnapped as a child. On the bright side, his girlfriend Lexi and best friend Finn believe he's innocent along with his parents and younger sister Helen. Back at the 100-acre woods, a group of hunters who also believed Christopher's story search for the beasts. They get a few things right and a few things wrong. First, I love the fact that there's 3 of them with shotguns. Actually, that's just about the only thing they do right. Why are they going at night? Do they enjoy handicapping themselves? 3 people is definitely not enough given what we know. Also, why are they laying traps in the woods when the beasts have home court advantage? You're way more likely to step into your own traps than they are, especially at night. If it were me, I'm gathering as many hunters as possible and striking during the daytime. I'm also bringing professional animal trackers and beginning the hunt where the 3 girls died earlier. Everyone will also be armed with a flare, and when Pooh or one of the other beasts are spotted, we can fire a flare and swarm the shit out of them. Anyway, Al scouts out the area and spots them before reporting back to the group leader Pooh. Despite being extremely resilient with uncanny healing abilities, we know they're mortal. It was made clear in the first movie when they ate Eeyore to survive, and it's even clearer now since Al says that they get weaker by the day due to winter. This is concerning for them as the hunters get closer and closer to their hideout by the day, which is why Al suggests they start playing some offense by attacking people in the town. Their first offensive campaign begins with the hunters in the woods, with Piglet being the first to strike. It's clear Piglet has had one too many Dunkin' Donuts since the first movie though, as his swings are slow and he misses, which leads to him being held at gunpoint. They then shotgun Piglet in the face, which I approve, but we now know the creatures are real and therefore the stories are real, which implies their regenerative abilities are real. If it were me, I'm dragging that piece of bacon out of the woods and turning him into minced pork before setting the meat on fire and putting the ashes in an urn and tying the urn to the rock and sinking the rock to the bottom of the ocean. This doesn't happen though, and Pooh surprise attacks one of the hunters. When the other 2 come to rescue the hunter, they somehow don't see the big ass yellow man bear standing behind them. Like, how did they not see him like stood right there as they approached the guy? Anyway, one of them accidentally shotguns his friend in the face, and as for him, Pooh disarms his shotgun and impales it through the head. Miraculously, the hunter who got shotgunned in the face survived. Back at the hospital where Christopher works at, we find out that he's been fired because these dumbass people still believe he was responsible for the 100-acre massacre. It's all good though, because he's now unemployed like me. We then cut to a father and son spending some quality time together in the woods before Al kidnaps the father, saving him from child support. This however cost him an arm and a leg. Get it? Because his arm and leg is decapitated and floating along the water. Oh brother, this guy stinks! Back at the therapy session, Chris has a flashback of when his little brother was kidnapped. He also reminisces on the good old times he spent with Pooh when he was still chill. Take a look at Pooh though. No child of mine is befriending that creature. Hey, listen, I've said this before. It's important not to judge a book by its cover, but if the cover looks like that, I'm calling Homeland Security. As a result of the 100-acre massacre and the recent brutal killings, the police send 3 people to the hideout. What? How is the government not involved? In 2017, 8 people were killed by 3 terrorists in London. Do you know what happened next? Armed police gunned them down 8 minutes later and proceeded to bring the entire police force and special forces unit to roam London. Look how kitted out the soldiers were, and now look at these 3 bums who have been sent to deal with the beasts. They discover gruesome body parts and body bags and decide not to call it in. As a result, Tigger slaughters them all. Remember Christopher's friend? He's just finished taking a shower before seeing a trail of dead animal carcasses. He makes a high IQ play by following it outside while still being wrapped in his towel. No wonder Pooh and Al have such a high kill streak since their victims are actual NPCs. Al jumps him and then gets on top of him and then squirts bare fluids from his mouth all over Finn's face and then penetrates his face by jamming his fingers into it. Finn could have had a +1% chance of surviving if he had turned the other direction of the trail, barricaded himself in his room while facing the door and window, and called 999 saying that there was an armed intruder. It is important he doesn't mention he's being attacked by half human, half animal hybrids, so the police don't think it's a prank call and take it seriously. Back at the hospital, Chris questions the surviving hunter who has been brought back in critical condition. As he can't speak, he writes on a whiteboard, "You were right," before taking off his bandages and writing, "They did this." Chris then spots the janitor lurking around, who he recognises as the man who kidnapped his younger brother, and decides to follow him home in order to confront him. The janitor, Cavendish, reveals that he worked for Dr. Arthur Gallup, a scientist who forced him to kidnap kids around town for experiments with animal genes. None of the kids survived, and were buried in the 100-acre woods, where they ended up coming back as half animal, half human hybrids with an enhanced healing factor. When Cavendish also reveals that Billy was among the victims and was resurrected as Pooh, he commits self-unalive out of guilt. We then cut to Lexi, who is babysitting a kid, and she believes someone has broken into the house. They go underneath a blanket and use a toy RC car to scout the place like it's Rainbow Six Siege, and Pooh crushes the shit out of it. He chases them around the house and they make it outside somehow where they're police officers. Once again, the police force in this movie loves sending in the bare minimum to take on a ruthless killer on a murderous rampage. This time, they send in one officer. The fuck is she gonna do? Fight Pooh in 1v1 hand-to-hand combat? Speaking of hands, Pooh rips her hands off and beats her to death with it. Back in the car, Chris listens to a tape recording of the Doctor and learns more about the origins of the beasts and how they came to be from the experiments. The best way to beat our enemy in any form of warfare is to know all about them, and this is why Chris should read all the documents and listen to all the recordings, as it is the only way to find out the weaknesses and how to defeat them. While Chris is busy studying the tapes and documents, Pooh attacks his family home. First, he shoves his mother's face into a rack of knives, then kills the father off screen, and then finally kidnaps his little sister. Also, here's Pooh mewing in case you wanted to see. The onslaught continues as Pooh, Owl and Tigger visit a nearby rave to let off some steam. This guy talks trash to a 6'2" bear covered in blood holding a metal pipe. As a result, Pooh puts the pipe through his face. See? This girl has the right idea by running into a large crowd, but Pooh decides to target her in particular and does a scorpion Mortal Kombat maneuver with a bear trap attached to a chain which decapitates her head. The head flies towards Pooh and he baseball swings it like prime Mike Trout for a home run. This causes everyone to go into a frenzy and Pooh goes on a massive killing spree with crazy techno music blasting in the background. A few of the partygoers run into a nearby hallway and Pooh catches them lacking. I don't have any advice here, bro, you're all dead. Luckily, they do find a shaft to escape to just in time. The rest of the partygoers find themselves face to face with Tigger, who has now been released into the public domain. Tigger tries to match Pooh's kill streak by going on his own rampage and starts decapitating bare people. Nothing much you can do here but run outside while Tigger and Pooh are distracted with killing other people. For example, this girl here is getting hella stabbed while her friend on the balcony is just screaming and shit, like, why are you not running away while Tigger's occupied? Even then, these people don't know about the existence of Owl who could be lurking outside. Hiding is also not an option. Tigers have been reported to be able to smell prey up to a kilometer away and can distinguish between scents. This is due to odor detecting cells in their nose coupled with reduced olfactory regions in the brain. Chris finally arrives to the rave after being notified by Lexi and comes face to face with Tigger. Chris shoots Tigger, which clearly hurts him, but because Tigger is kitted out in vibranium plot armor, Chris shoots him once rather than unloading the whole clip like I would have done. I would have also stomped on Tigger's head until it was fine smush and lit it on fire. What's even worse is that one of the ravers on the floor who's on the brink of death uses her last breath to hold Tigger's leg so that Christopher can get a good shot, but no, he shoots him once. This allows Tigger time to compose himself and fling blood into Christopher's eyes before escaping. Anyway, Pooh comes face to face with Chris and they now have a 1v1. Pooh uses a chainsaw and despite common beliefs, they're actually terrible weapons to use, so this is a plus for Chris. Not only is it reliant on fuel, but they can also be easily jammed and have multiple points of failure. Pooh would have been better off wielding a hammer and a pole like he did earlier, however, it can be argued that the psychological fear inflicted with a chainsaw is much greater and outweighs the technical downsides. Chris bats Pooh several times, demonstrating the lack of mobility and lateral quickness of wielding a chainsaw, even when it's being used by Pooh, who's strong enough to lift an RV and rip people's heads off their bodies. Pooh then backhand slaps Chris, causing him to flee, cause I would too if I got bitched like that. Pooh then dips the chainsaw in oil and lights it on fire because intimidation, I guess. Once again, does the psychological upside outweigh the obstructed vision from the smoke? Doesn't matter. Pooh finds Christopher, and just before he's about to chainsaw him, Pooh gets distracted by the grave which he rose from when he was buried by Dr. Gallop. Chris calls him Billy and apologizes to him, but he's not trying to hear all that and grabs him by the throat, but just before he's about to kill him, Lexi arrives and jumps on Pooh's back, causing him to let go. Chris then picks up the axe and slams it into Pooh's head, sending his lifeless body back into the grave where he came from. Once again, Christopher knows about their regenerative abilities both from the janitor and from the tape recordings. Why is he not mincing Pooh's dead body and setting it on fire? I will never know. When the police finally arrive, it's revealed that Pooh spared Chris's little sister, which implies that he had a tiny ounce of humanity left in him. You know, if you ignore the part where he brutally slaughtered his parents and roughly 100 people, he's kinda a misunderstood good guy, you know. In the post-credit scene, it is revealed that Owl along with Rabbit, Kanga and Roo recovered the bodies of Pooh and Piglet and are attempting to bring them back to life. We also see depictions of Bambi and Pinocchio hinting that they're going to form their own evil avengers in the Pooh multiverse, the Pooniverse. In the end, these hybrid beasts could have been put into the ground as early as the end of the first movie. Had the police force and government responded more sufficiently, reflecting their real life counterpart, or the hunters had prepared more rigorously, then I'm confident in stating that Pooh, Piglet, Owl and Tigger were beaten. Don't forget to like and subscribe to help me out of unemployment, and be sure to check out my other how to beats. And remember, just because something exists doesn't mean you have to make a movie about it.